Welcome to the Status Toolkit, supporting travellers advance through universal services. The purpose of the Status Toolkit is to provide a quality assurance framework whereby youth and community organisations can engage in a process of self-evaluation and agree a continuous improvement plan to support their youth and community practices to be more inclusive of members of the travelling community. This will help to achieve the best possible outcomes for engagement, participation and retention of young people from the travelling community in their projects and activities. After decades of marginalisation and discrimination, a significant number of the travelling community still experience racism, discrimination, marginalisation, internalised oppression and a lack of real opportunities to progress personally, socially, emotionally and economically with their settled counterparts. This often results in low self-esteem and low self-confidence when operating outside the safety of their community and environment. For example, the All-Ireland Traveller Health Study 2010 found that travellers are 6 times more likely to die by suicide than non-travellers, and that 56% of travellers said that poor physical and mental health restricted their normal daily activities compared to only 24% of the GMS population. The aim of this workshop is to create awareness and develop your organisation's understanding of how to implement the Status Toolkit into youth, community, education and other work practices going forward. After this workshop, your organisation will have an overview and background to what the Status Toolkit is about. Your organisation will acquire a common understanding of how to status. Your staff and volunteers will enhance their awareness around working successfully with Irish travellers. The staff workers will engage with and adapt the toolkit into their work practice. And your organisation will be able to identify the importance of the Status Toolkit for your sector and your work. In relation to engagement, participation and retention of young people from the traveller community within youth work, the Nexus Report 2016 found that traveller organisations identified 2 key barriers to youth participation. One was the traveller culture is not recognised by youth work staff, and 2, the traveller culture is not recognised by settled young people. Local and national regional youth organisations further identified the following as core barriers: that there was a perceived lack of traveller value on youth work and youth development, and that gender differences and conditionings had a big influence on how they ran their activities. From the current life experience of the traveller community, organisations and individuals working with the travelling community, we need to take extra and repetitive steps to create the conditions for societal change and organisational excellence in this area. Travellers themselves will require additional supports as they are not a homogeneous group, but rather a broad and diverse with tailored needs and issues. Sometimes we think by going the extra mile and creating equality is enough to be inclusive. But we all know at this stage that equity always outweighs equality. What is the Status Toolkit? It's a step-by-step toolkit guide to facilitate and create an organisational best practice approach for engagement, participation and retention of young people from the traveller community in your services, activities and programmes. The purpose of the Status Toolkit is to provide a quality assurance framework for youth and community organisations to be more inclusive and supportive of the traveller community. It's to engage in a process of self-evaluation and an agreed continuous improvement plan to support their youth and community practice to be more inclusive of members of the travelling community. Why implementing Status Toolkit is important. It creates a welcoming and empowering social environment for members of the travelling community. Services and organisations will create the conditions and opportunities so that travellers will participate fully and advance with confidence and be ready to engage in society. By utilising the Status Toolkit and agreeing actions, a service is taking strategic steps within their practice which ensures better outcomes for travellers within their educational, personal life and society as a whole. This step-by-step guide will facilitate and create an organisational best practice approach in the engagement, participation and retention of young travellers in mainstream services. An open door policy or treating everybody equally is not always enough to foster equality. This requires proactive and deliberate planning, such as a targeted approach. So there are 3 easy steps to success. First off, there will have to be an organizational leader. They will oversee the status toolkit within the organization and make the links between other workers, other activities, and policies. Secondly, there will be an implementation team to promote the use of status, and they implement it into 8 priority sections. And finally, there will be a statement of intent or a self-assessment continuous improvement plan and 4 assessment areas where you will decide as an organisation whether you are absent, acquired, achieved or advanced in your implementation within these areas. The continuous improvement plan is very straightforward. Anyone who has dealt with the NQSF before will understand the rating system. Within the continuous improvement plan, there are 8 sections or priority areas. These are board of management, operational management, practice service delivery, environment and culture, administration, participation, volunteers, and advocacy. Across your template, you will have 4 or 5 different areas where you will have to decide what will be your input. So you will first of all put down your supporting evidence, then you will rate yourselves whether you are absent, acquired, achieved or advanced. You will then identify areas for improvement within this key area. Then you will identify specific actions to support this implementation, who will progress on these ideas and when, and then you will review it. What has been achieved and where is the evidence to support this achievement? For the purpose of this online training, we have selected Section 4, Environment and Culture. Here we have some potential actions and evidence to assess the rating for the environment and culture of your organisation. These actions and evidence were identified by focus groups from young people from the travelling community and workers from traveller organisations. They are not ranked but simply bullet pointed for ease of reference. As you can see, some of these you may already have within your organisation. Simple things such as A. Visual evidence of traveller identity represented in the reception of the organisation and throughout the premises. This could be something as simple as downloading some of the posters seen below from involve.ie. B. Representation of traveller identity and culture is present in the displayed photographs and publicity materials within the organisation. Does your organisation include imagery or young people from your area who are from the travelling community when handing out flyers or within your social media context? Organisations can demonstrate that young people from the travelling community are welcome. D. Open day events in which traveller families are welcomed and proactively invited. From our experience with working with the travelling community, it is not enough to simply put a flyer to the letterbox. Sometimes you have to proactively invite members of the travelling community, bearing in mind the high level of literacy issues within the community. E. Develop relationships with local traveller families which makes them feel more welcome and informed to engage in the programmes. If you get the buy-in from the local travelling community, you will see your participation levels increase. There are many more potential actions and evidence areas that you can see when you download the toolkit in its full format. These actions and evidence are also not conclusive. You may have some of your own that you might like to cite within your template. So the self-assessment framework works as such. Again, concentrating on environment and culture, you will decide whether or not it is absent. The identity of the traveller community is not recognised or celebrated or evident in the environment and culture within your organisation. Or is it acquiring? The identity of the traveller community is recognised and somewhat evident within the environment and culture of the service. Is it achieved? The identity of the travelling community is clearly identified and evident in the environment and culture of the service. Or is it advanced? The identity of the traveller community is clearly visible, is identified and is promoted at all levels in the environment and culture of your service. Bear in mind this is a continuous improvement plan and a self-assessment tool. This is something you can achieve. This is something you can move on to. So what now that the training is completed? You will go back to your organisation and you will present to the rest of the organisation and board of management and on-ground staff. You will tell them what you think you should do going forward to implement the status toolkit. You will review, discuss and evaluate on a quarterly basis with your implementation team within your organisation and us as the status team to help support you to make this possible. Please do not be put off by thinking that you cannot achieve those 8 action areas. Some organisations will only start with 1 or 2 action areas in the beginning and build their way up. You will know what suits your organisation best. Please do not hesitate to contact the status team to find out more about how you can implement the status toolkit within your organisation. You can also download the status toolkit available on our www.involve.ie website. Please do not hesitate in contacting us to find out more information at statusproject@involve.ie. And remember to celebrate those wins along the way. Starting small and thinking big is the way to go. We look forward to working with you and supporting you going forward with the Status Toolkit project.